what happens when, let's say we've deployed an MDU and everyone's got to connect to the network, log in with their account credentials, they get put into their own VLAN, and then they're off and they've got their own little private network that follows them around the building, right? What happens when you have your Xbox or your wireless printer or something like that that doesn't have a web client in it? We need a way to get that device to be part of your network and logged in as well without having to go through the captive portal process. So that's kind of where the background login stuff comes into play. Through the captive portal, a user has the ability to go in and manage their list of devices. So within any account, an account has a list of devices. So let's see if we got somebody that has 4. Carl's got 4 devices in his account already. So these are likely things that he's gone through and just logged in individually on each of these devices, but in a lot of circumstances you can't do that on the device. So through the portal you can go in and add the MAC address of a headless device to your account, and in order to get that device actually to be part of a policy that has access to the internet, it needs to have a session created for it. So just belonging to an account that's part of a particular account group that has an internet access policy is not enough to get you online. The device needs a session. So assuming that your pre-auth policy has a splash portal on it. Of course, if you've got an IP group that's just has no splash portal and thinks in that IP group, they can get out to the internet without requiring a session. But when you have a captive portal in place, a device needs a session. And the way that we can get those sessions to be built is using the automatic login settings. So within an account and also within a usage plan, there's a checkbox here that says automatic login. So that checkbox controls whether or not this device will automatically have its devices that show up on the network logged in. And so having that enabled lets you bring these headless devices online. This works in conjunction with the automatic login options under the Splash and landing portals. So in our circumstance, we've got our onboarding policy, which has a Splash portal, and it's tied to the IP groups for our onboarding network and the account LAN, which is basically the way that you end up in that account IP group is if you are part of an account that via radius ends up associating you with a realm that's specific to the account. So there would be a realm that's tied to the policy for this group that would put an end user device into that pool of VLANs instead of the onboarding pool of VLANs. But even when you end up in that IP space, if the IP group is attached to a policy that has a Splash portal, things in that network still require a login session before they can get online. So, assuming that we've got our IP groups attached to the Splash portal, when a device that's in one of those policies shows up on the network, meaning they just attach, they've gone through the radius process, and you get an IP address in one of these VLANs. Depending on the automatic login configuration, the RxG is basically continually scanning its DHCP table and ARP table and recognizing that a device has shown up on the network that belongs to an account which has automatic login enabled, and is currently in a policy that has automatic login enabled on the Splash portal. When that happens, the RSG will create a login session for the device automatically. So that device, your headless device, your wireless printer or something like that, will be able to access the internet like any other device without having to go through the Splash portal itself.
And somewhere we created a list of MAC addresses or something that, I mean, how does it?
Yeah.
Okay.
In the portal,
Sorry, that's what I just missed. Okay.
yeah,
Sorry.
sorry. I'll bring it up just so you can see. So you can see when I went to there, it automatically logged me in because my device has already been registered and it's in a policy that has portal automatic login enabled. So I got to the portal and it automatically logged me in to my account. In here, I can go in and manage the list of devices for my particular account and add the MAC address of my Xbox, Kindle, whatever it is. So once that happens, having that device under your account is enough to affect change in the radius responses that happen. So when a device connects to the network and we get that radius request coming through.
Oh, this is the self-service portal.
Yes, this is a self-service portal. This is the portal that's slightly modified for this conference, but
Yeah.
this stuff all just comes from the existing default portal. Within the radius configuration, which you kind of talked about before, we have a few ways to match people to a particular realm. One of those is with a attribute match pattern, so we can look at the request attributes that came through from the wireless LAN controller, and we can match pieces of information from the request to a particular realm, such as the SSID name. This is just a regular expression here, so we can allow anything, or we can manipulate that in different ways. There's other things that we can match against here that comes through in the request. That's one way we can get people into a policy, or into a particular realm. And the other way is by the policy checkbox. So when we have a device that connects to the network, our wireless LAN controller sends us a request with that user's MAC address as the calling station ID, and the RSG will go through this process of looking up, trying to find a matching account for that particular MAC address. So it will see that we've got a device registered with this MAC address and it belongs to this account, and this account is part of the attendee policy. And once it recognizes that, again, taking into account the precedence values of different groups, so there might be more than one group that you might match against, but precedence of those values, in addition to the precedence of the match pattern, allows us to change the radius response and put the person into VLANs. So that's one way that we can, affect those changes. But again, like I said, putting the person into that pool of VLANs is not enough. We need to also make sure that they've got a login session. So there's the two modes. There's background mode, portal, automatic login. Background mode means that the RGNETS is going to create a session automatically for them in the back end and make sure that that device now has all of the firewall rules and policy elements that are in place for the policy of the account group of that particular account, rather than falling into the rules of the IP group that it's in, which would in this case be the attendee IP group, because they moved into that realm of VLANs. But we want to build a session so they can get online. And then the portal mode automatic login is to essentially, when the person visits the portal page, whether they actually have logged in to the portal itself and have the ability to go in, manage their devices, change their profile, upgrade plans, all of that sort of. Does that make sense?
Yep.